Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am a Comic Hero. Coming to you from Southern Realms Comics fans here in Ruston, Louisiana. And, well, I really don't have much to say, but it's time to give away a free t-shirt. Alright, last week's episode, I asked, what year did the first X-Men movie premiere in theaters? Now, I gave 3 hints on social media. The first hint was that it came out the same year that Bill Gates stepped down as Microsoft CEO. It came out the same year as the 27 Summer Olympics in Sydney, Australia. And for everyone who knows me personally, it came out the same year that I graduated from high school. Well, the correct answer is 2000. It came out in the summer of 2000, and that's one of the Marvel movies that I actually like. Now, keep in mind, there were some Marvel movies that came out, and they really weren't that good. Thankfully, X-Men was one of them. All right, 11 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, their names have been entered in a drawing for a free tee, and that drawing takes place right now. So, the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is Kathy McCord from Monticello, Arkansas. So congratulations, Kathy. You win yourself a free Comic Hero tee. All right, here's the question for next week's episode, and this is a DC question. It's actually a Green Lantern question. Which DC villain was the Green Lantern who was dishonorably discharged from the Green Lantern Corps for abusing his power? Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tee in next week's episode of the show. Now, Ben Holland from Los Angeles, California has requested a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, and this one features the Dark Knight and then a character from the video game God of War. Representing DC, we have Batman. And representing God of War, we have Kratos. These two are going to duke it out in a segment I like to call
The Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Welcome to the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Today, it's Batman versus Kratos. Batman possesses genius-level intellect, peak human physical condition, is a skilled martial artist and hand-to-hand combatant, expert detective, and utilizes high-tech equipment and weapons. Kratos possesses agility, berserker strength, blast power, danger sense, divine powers, electricity control, energy absorption, energy enhanced strike, escape artist, feral, fire control, various gadgets, healing factor, ice control, immortality, intellect, invulnerability, leadership, light projection, longevity, magic, marksmanship, necromancy, light manipulation, soul absorption, stamina, stealth, is a submariner, super hearing, super sight, super speed, super strength, swordsmanship, time manipulation, tracking, unarmed combat, and is a weapons master. Who will win? If any of you think Batman is going to lose this fight, then you're very wrong. This fight would start out with hand-to-hand combat. You would think Kratos would have the upper hand because of his strength, but there's a reason why Batman is the greatest detective. He studied Kratos' only weakness. His super speed and berserker strength causes him to be clumsy. Batman ducks every attack. Kratos then resorts to using his powers. He tries to electrocute Batman, but the latter absorbs the electricity with his conduit line cape. After minutes of thwarting attacks, Batman does the unthinkable and allows Kratos to absorb his soul. Kratos wins. But wait! Only a few seconds, Kratos is horrified by what he absorbs. He returns Batman's soul and slits his own throat. Batman wins. That concludes this fight on the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed that fight. If you have fight requests for future episodes, contact info is down there. Alright, then it's time for Comically Speaking, so without further ado, let's talk comics! Alright, I'm only going to talk about one thing in this segment of Comically Speaking, and it's been rumored and later confirmed by Brian Michael Bendis, who's the writer of Superman and Action Comics, and also the current Man of Steel miniseries that's going on in DC, that a character from the worst Superman movie of all time will be making his transition to the comics. And I'm talking about Nuclear Man. Now, Nuclear Man was a character that was created for the movie Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, back in 1987. And, you know what? Now, I'm totally against anyone who writes a movie and they create, a comic book movie rather, and they create characters that have never been seen in the comics. They were just created for the movie. I'm totally against that. Now, as far as cartoons go, that's fine, but not in a live action comics movie. That's no. And Nuclear Man was, I mean, I watched Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Felt very bad about it, considering it was the worst Superman movie ever. But I didn't like the character. But I trust the judgment of Brian Michael Bendis to an extent. And they're going to, and it hasn't really been confirmed whether Nuclear Man is going to make his debut in either Superman or Action Comics. But I'm kind of intrigued because it's Brian Michael Bendis and he's a great comics writer. I'm intrigued to see how this is going to go about. I mean, how he's going to be different from in the movies. But can't wait to read that. All right, that's it for Comically Speaking. Now then, let's get to the comics I bought this week.
Comic books I bought this week.
All right, first up is Batman number 49. Now, this is part of the story arc entitled The Best Man, in which the Joker gets involved. And, oh boy. Old green-haired and got himself, then, yeah, you don't mess with a wedding, especially when the groom is the Dark Knight. And this is the last issue before the 50th issue when Batman and Catwoman finally get married. Yeah, so intrigued. You know, this is the most polarizing wedding in all of comics, and I can't wait to read this one, and I can't wait to read number 50 when it comes out. All right, next up is Tony Stark Iron Man number 1. This is the first issue of the new Iron Man book, and Tony Stark is back, and he's kind of, and you know, he's the same Tony, but the only difference is he finally knows who his parents are and were. Of course, his mother is Amanda Armstrong, and then his father was whose name was Jude. They were both agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and found out, and I talked about this a while back, he's also British. But I don't think that's going to really bother him all that much. But one thing he's back in armor, and game on. All right, next up is X-Men Gold number 30. Now, this is another comics wedding, but this one isn't polarizing. This has been one that's been in the making for a little over 30 years. This is the wedding of Colossus and Kitty Pryde. And along the way, they have been dating. I mean, Colossus hasn't really been with anyone. Shadowcat's been with Star-Lord, and of all people, Iceman. But then they ended up getting back together, and Kitty, instead of Colossus popping the question, Kitty broke tradition, and she popped the question, and now here it is. The wedding we've all been waiting for, other than Batman and Catwoman, of course. All right, next up is the Man of Steel number 4. Now, in the last issue, Ra's al Ghul comes to Earth, and the first thing he does, he destroys the Fortress of Solitude. And not only does he destroy the Fortress of Solitude, he also destroys the Bottle City of Kandor. And Superman and Supergirl are very disturbed by it, and they go after him. But next thing you know, Ra's al Ghul knocks Superman to Kingdom Come, and this is a continuation of that. And also, we learn more about what happened to Lois and John, and it was a blinding light. It was someone on some kind of hovering pedestal. Now, at first I thought it was Metron from the New Gods, but I'm not sure who that was. But I think in this issue, well, hopefully, we find out. And then finally, Aquaman number 37. Now, this is the conclusion to the Throne of Atlantis story arc, where Aquaman goes up against Wrath, who was a prisoner who ended up taking the Throne of Atlantis, and it's JJ, folks. But anyway, Coram Wrath ends up taking the Throne of Atlantis, and Aquaman, with the help of several other folks, is going to take it back, and it's no holds barred. Oh, not only that, but Wrath also went through a very monstrous transformation. All right, that's 5, which brings the total number of comics that I bought since December of 1997 to 8,724. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Here's a question again for a free tee for next week's episode of the show. Which DC villain was a Green Lantern who was dishonorably discharged from the Green Lantern Corps for abusing his power? Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tee in next week's episode of the show. And congratulations to Kathy McCord from Monticello, Arkansas, who won a free tee in this week's episode. Now, I didn't get a chance to go to Mississippi Comic-Con this weekend. Had a lot of stuff going on. Actually moving. I'm moving from West Monroe back to my hometown of Homer, and also starting a new job. And but that's not going to change anything about the show. I'm still going to be doing it here. And but however, in less than 2 months, I will be going to GeekCon in Shreveport, and I can't wait for that. I mean, there's going to be a lot of great guests: John Wesley Shipp, Helen Slater, Mick Foley, and several others. And I really can't wait to go. And hopefully I'll be able to get an interview with some of these folks, especially John Wesley Shipp. I mean, I'm an 80s and 90s kid. I grew up watching old episodes of The Flash that came on CBS back in 1990, and of course he played the lead role. So yeah, then I'm kind of a wrestling enthusiast, so I think I'd really love to interview Mick Foley. But yeah. Oh, and next week's episode 220. Going to be observing the 4th of July, and I'm going to do it the best way I know how. I'm going to be wearing a Captain America comic hero tee, and I'm going to be completely decked out. Y'all almost won't tell whether I'm just wearing a t-shirt or dressed up in cosplay. It's going to be spectacular. All right, I'm Victor Nolly on the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for episode 220. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero. Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. Coming to you from Southern Rails Comics Games here in Ruston, Louisiana. And it's the last episode of June. And that's pretty much it. Hope y'all enjoyed the...
Can you fix this?
Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. Coming to you from Southern Rails Comics Game here in Ruston, and I just butchered that. That's two. All right, last week's episode, I asked, what year did the first X-Men movie premiere in theaters? Now, I gave 3 hints on social media. The first hint is it came out the same year that Bill Gates stepped down as CEO of Microsoft. It came out the same year as the 27th Summer Olympics in Sydney, Australia. And I need to do that again because I... All right, first up is Batman number 49. This is part of the story arc entitled The Best Man. This is the last issue before Batman and Catwoman get married. And I tell you, the Joker's really outdone himself now. And